The magic chair. The antique shop on Maple Street had been there for as long as anyone could remember, wedged between a coffee shop and a dry cleaner like a secret waiting to be discovered. Its window display never changed, a tarnished brass telescope, a stack of leather-bound books, and a peculiar high-backed chair upholstered in midnight blue velvet that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. 12-year-old Emma Chen had walked past that shop every day on her way home from school for 3 years without giving it a second glance. But on this particular October afternoon, with dead leaves skittering across the sidewalk and the first real chill of autumn in the air, something made her stop. Perhaps it was the way the late afternoon sun caught the shop's window at just the right angle, or perhaps it was simply that she'd had a terrible day and wanted to delay going home to face her failed math test. The bell above the door chimed as she entered, and the smell hit her immediately: old paper, lemon oil, dust, and something else she couldn't quite identify. Cinnamon? Cardamom? Time itself? Welcome, welcome. A woman emerged from behind a tower of hat boxes, her silver hair piled atop her head in a gravity-defying arrangement. She wore at least 7 necklaces and had reading glasses perched on her head, hanging around her neck, and dangling from a chain on her sweater. "I'm Mrs. Kulski. Please, look around. Everything here has a story." Emma nodded politely and began to wander, running her fingers along the spines of books, examining porcelain figurines, and peering into the depths of ornate mirrors. But inevitably, she found herself drawn to the blue velvet chair from the window. Up close, it was even more remarkable. The wood was dark mahogany, carved with intricate patterns that seemed to shift when she wasn't looking directly at them. The velvet had a depth to it that made her want to dive in. And there, embroidered in silver thread on the seat cushion, was a single word in an elegant script: wish. Mrs. Kulski appeared at her elbow like a conjured spirit. "The wishing chair. That's a special one." "Wishing chair?" Emma asked skeptically. She was 12, not 6. She'd stopped believing in magic around the same time she'd stopped believing in the tooth fairy. "Indeed. But it's very particular about its wishes. You see, it doesn't grant the wishes you speak. It grants the wishes you need." Mrs. Kulski's eyes twinkled behind one of her many pairs of glasses. "There's a difference, you know." Emma wanted to roll her eyes, but something stopped her. "How much is it?" "Oh, it's not for sale, dear. Never has been. It belongs to the shop, you might say. Or perhaps the shop belongs to it. But you're welcome to sit in it if you like. No charge for that." It seemed silly, but Emma had nothing better to do and nowhere she particularly wanted to be. She lowered herself onto the chair, half expecting it to be uncomfortable or lumpy. Instead, it embraced her like a hug from someone who actually understood. The velvet was impossibly soft, the angle of the back perfect for her spine. She felt herself relax for the first time all day. She closed her eyes, and without meaning to, she thought about her math test, about how her parents would be disappointed, about how her older brother David seemed to excel at everything without trying while she struggled and strained, about how she wished. Well, she wished a lot of things, but mostly, in that moment, she wished she didn't feel so completely, utterly alone. When she opened her eyes, the shop had changed. Not dramatically. The towers of hat boxes were still there. The telescope still pointed toward some distant star, but the light was different, softer somehow, and Mrs. Kulski was gone. In her place stood a girl about Emma's age, wearing clothes that looked like they came from the 1950s, a full skirt, a neat cardigan, saddle shoes. "Oh, the girl said, startled. "I didn't know anyone else was here. I'm Dorothy. Are you looking at the chair too?" Emma's mouth opened and closed. I was sitting in it. I am sitting in it. How funny. I was just about to. I come here every Thursday after piano lessons. My teacher lives just around the corner. Dorothy tilted her head, studying Emma's jeans and sneakers with undisguised curiosity. "You're dressed very strangely. Are you in a play?" Before Emma could answer, the shop bell chimed again. A boy in bell-bottoms and a tie-dyed shirt walked in, followed by a girl in a flapper dress, followed by a boy in what looked like medieval tunic, followed by a modern-day kid in a hoodie and ripped jeans. They all stopped and stared at each other. "Okay," said the kid in the hoodie. "This is weird, right? This is definitely weird." Mrs. Kulski reappeared, looking utterly unsurprised. "Ah, good. You're all here. The chair has been quite insistent lately. Tea, anyone?" What followed was the strangest afternoon of Emma's life. As Mrs. Kulski bustled about making tea that somehow tasted exactly right for each person, they began to talk. Dorothy was from 1954 and felt invisible in her large family. The boy in bell-bottoms, Marcus, was from 1972 and was being pressured to follow in his father's footsteps when he wanted to be an artist. The flapper, Louise, was from 1923 and was tired of being told what proper young ladies could and couldn't do. The medieval boy, Thomas, was from, well, he wasn't entirely sure of the year, but he was a blacksmith's apprentice who dreamed of learning to read. And the kid in the hoodie, Jake, was from just last week and was dealing with his parents' recent divorce. They were from different times, different worlds, different everything, but they all had one thing in common: they'd all sat in the chair wishing they weren't alone. "The chair doesn't actually grant wishes, does it?" Emma said slowly, beginning to understand. "Not in the way you might think," Mrs. Kulski agreed. "But it listens. And sometimes, what we need most isn't for our problems to disappear. It's to know we're not the only ones facing them." They talked for hours, though time seemed strange in the shop. Dorothy confessed her fear that she'd never be anything more than someone's daughter, someone's wife, someone's mother. Marcus showed them sketches he'd hidden in his notebook, drawings so beautiful they made Louise gasp. Thomas asked them to teach him letters, and they did, forming ABCs in the dust on a mirror. Jake talked about feeling split in two, about having 2 bedrooms and 2 sets of toothbrushes and feeling whole in neither place. And Emma, who'd come in thinking she was alone in her struggles, realized that people had been struggling with feeling inadequate, with family pressure, with loneliness, for hundreds of years. She wasn't special in her pain, but she also wasn't alone in it. "I failed a math test today," she admitted, "and I keep thinking about how I'm going to disappoint my parents, and how I'm not smart like my brother, and how I'm just not enough. My piano teacher says I have no talent," Dorothy said quietly, "but I keep trying because Mother insists." "Perhaps," Thomas said slowly, "talent is not the point. Perhaps trying is." "That's very wise," Louise said, "for someone who can't read yet." "I'm learning," Thomas said with dignity, and they all laughed. Eventually, the light in the shop began to change again, growing dimmer. Mrs. Kulski collected their teacups with a knowing smile. "Time to go, dears. The chair has rules, you know. Can't break the fabric of time too terribly much." "Will we see each other again?" Jake asked, and Emma heard the hope in his voice, the same hope she felt. "The chair works in mysterious ways," Mrs. Kulski said, "but I suspect when you need each other most, it will find a way." One by one, they began to fade, like images in an old photograph left too long in the sun. Dorothy waved, her saddle shoes already translucent. Marcus gave them all a peace sign. Louise blew them a kiss. Thomas bowed formally, and Jake offered a fist bump to the empty air. Then Emma was alone in the shop again, sitting in the blue velvet chair, the word wish glinting silver beneath her. "Did that really happen?" she asked Mrs. Kulski. The old woman shrugged, her necklaces jingling. "Does it matter? You came in here alone and hurting. Are you still?" Emma thought about it. The math test was still failed. Her parents would still be disappointed. Her brother would still be effortlessly brilliant at everything. But she wasn't alone. Somewhere in 1954, a girl named Dorothy would go home to her piano practice knowing someone understood. In 1972, Marcus would keep drawing. In 1923, Louise would keep pushing boundaries. Across some impossible distance, Thomas would practice his letters, and Jake would survive his split life. And Emma would go home, face the music about her test, and keep trying. Not because she'd suddenly become good at math or because her problems had disappeared, but because that's what you did. That's what people had always done. "Thank you," she said to Mrs. Kulski, standing up from the chair, "for the tea. And everything. Thank you for visiting," the old woman replied. "The chair does get lonely between wishes." Emma left the shop as the streetlights were coming on, the bell chiming behind her. She walked home through the autumn evening, her failed test in her backpack, her fears still real, but something fundamental had shifted. In her pocket, she found something that hadn't been there before, a small piece of paper with 5 names written in different handwriting. Dorothy, Marcus, Louise, Thomas, Jake, and at the bottom, in her own hand though she didn't remember writing it, Emma. She kept that paper in her wallet for years, pulling it out whenever she felt alone, whenever the world seemed too big and her problems too heavy. And sometimes, on difficult days, she'd walk past the antique shop on Maple Street and see the blue velvet chair in the window, its silver embroidery catching the light. She never sat in it again. She didn't need to. The chair had already granted her exactly what she needed, the knowledge that across all of time, through every era and age, people struggled and persevered and found connection in the most unexpected places. Magic, she'd learned, wasn't about getting what you wanted. It was about discovering what you needed. And sometimes, what you needed was simply to know you weren't alone in the wishing. The shop is still there, if you know where to look. And the chair is still waiting, midnight blue and patient, for the next person who needs to know they're not alone. After all, that's what magic is really for.